The rain fell in sheets, turning the city into a smeared watercolor of neon and shadows. The streets were nearly empty, just the occasional car sloshing through puddles, its headlights cutting through the gloom before vanishing around a corner. Everyone in the neighborhood knows not to wait at the old bus stop after midnight. The voice was hushed, almost lost beneath the drumming rain. A figure stood beneath the awning of the convenience store across the street, watching. It's not superstition, it's fear, a fear that comes from something real. Caleb pulled his hood tighter over his head, his breath fogging in the cold air. He didn't believe in ghost stories, not really, but his sister had. And now she was gone. 2 weeks ago, Lena had left their apartment at 11:30 p.m., saying she was meeting a friend. She never came back. The police found her phone the next morning, sitting on the bench at the old bus stop. The screen cracked. The last text sent to Caleb: "I think I messed up. The bus isn't right." That was it. No other clues, no witnesses. Just the rain, the empty street, and the silence. Now, Caleb stood in the same spot, his fingers tracing the grooves in the bench where Lena's phone had rested. The homeless man who slept under the store's awning had been watching him for days. Tonight, he finally spoke. "You, her brother." His voice was rough, like gravel in an old engine. Caleb turned. The man's face was hidden beneath a tattered hood, but his eyes gleamed in the dim light. "Yeah," Caleb said. "You saw her." The man exhaled sharply, as if deciding whether to answer. Then, "She got on that bus, the one that comes when no one else is around." Caleb's pulse quickened. What bus? The one with the man who doesn't speak. A gust of wind sent rain spattering against the shelter. Caleb shivered. "Where does it go?" The man's lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Nowhere you want to be." Caleb didn't sleep that night. He sat at his kitchen table, staring at the map of the city, tracing the bus routes with a shaking finger. None of them matched the stop Lena had been at. Maybe she got on the wrong one. Maybe she's still out there. But the homeless man's words gnawed at him. The one with the man who doesn't speak. At 11:45 p.m., Caleb grabbed his jacket and stepped back into the rain. He would wait. He would see for himself. The rain had slowed to a drizzle by the time Caleb reached the bus stop again. The homeless man was gone, leaving only a damp cardboard box and the faint scent of wet cigarettes. Caleb checked his phone. 11:58 p.m. 2 minutes. He exhaled, his breath curling in the cold air. The street was silent except for the distant hum of a flickering neon sign from the convenience store. The clerk inside, an older man with tired eyes, had refused to talk about Lena when Caleb asked earlier. He just shook his head and muttered, "Not my business." Now, as Caleb waited, the street light above him buzzed, its light dimming for a second before flaring back to life. Tick, tick, tick. His phone hit midnight. A gust of wind rushed down the street, sending a crumpled soda can skittering across the pavement. Then silence. No distant cars, no hum of electricity, just the sound of his own heartbeat in his ears. Then, from the far end of the street, a low growl of an engine. Caleb turned. Headlights cut through the fog to pale, sickly yellow eyes floating toward him. The bus, it was older than any he'd ever seen, its silver paint dull and streaked with grime. No route number, no company logo, just blacked-out windows and a dented front grille that looked like a skeletal grin. It slowed to a stop in front of him with a hiss of air brakes. The doors creaked open. Inside, the bus was dark. The only light came from the dim glow of the dashboard, illuminating the driver's silhouette. He sat perfectly still, his cap pulled low, his hands resting on the wheel. Caleb hesitated. This is insane, but Lena had gotten on. He stepped forward. The moment his foot touched the step, the air changed thick, stale, carrying the scent of old leather and something faintly metallic. The fare machine was dead, its screen dark. Caleb reached into his pocket anyway, pulling out a crumpled dollar bill. How much?" he asked. The driver didn't move. Caleb swallowed and stepped fully inside. The doors wheezed shut behind him, sealing with a sound like a tomb closing. The bus lurched forward before he could even sit down, throwing him against a pole. He grabbed it, steadying himself as the vehicle accelerated far faster than any city bus should. Outside, the streets blurred, the buildings stretched, their windows elongating like screaming faces before melting into the darkness. What the hell? Caleb stumbled into the nearest seat, his fingers digging into the torn upholstery. The bus was empty, or so he thought. Then he saw them. Shadows, figures sitting in the seats ahead, their outlines shifting like smoke. When he blinked, they were gone. His breath came faster. "Hey," he turned toward the driver. "Where are we going?" No response. The bus roared on, the world outside now, a tunnel of flickering streetlights and jagged black structures that didn't look like buildings at all. Then, from the seat beside him, a voice. "Don't stay past the 5th stop." Caleb nearly jumped out of his skin. An old woman sat there now, her gnarled hands folded in her lap. She hadn't been there a second ago. Her milky eyes fixed on him. "Or you'll never leave." The old woman's words hung in the air like a death sentence. Caleb opened his mouth to respond, but she was already gone, vanished, as if she had never been there at all. The seat beside him was empty, the cracked leather cold to the touch. A shudder ran down his spine. "What the hell is this?" he muttered under his breath. The bus rumbled forward, its engine groaning like a dying beast. Outside, the city had completely disappeared. Now, there was only an endless road cutting through a void, flanked by floating streetlights that pulsed like dying stars. The darkness between them writhed, as if something moved just beyond the edge of vision. Caleb gripped the seat in front of him, knuckles white. 4 stops left. The first came too soon. A sharp ding echoed through the bus, though no one had pressed the signal. The brakes screeched, and the bus shuddered to a halt in front of a crumbling concrete platform. No shelter, no signs, just a slab of pavement jutting out of the abyss. The doors hissed open, cold air rushed in, carrying the scent of damp earth and something sour like rotting meat. Caleb leaned forward, peering into the darkness. Nothing moved. No one got on. No one got off. After a long, silent moment, the doors wheezed shut, and the bus lurched forward again. Caleb exhaled. 3 stops left. The doors hissed open. The next stop was worse. This time, the platform was made of warped wood, slick with something dark and glistening. A single flickering bulb swung overhead, casting jagged shadows. The doors opened. A figure stood there, tall, thin, wrapped in a long coat that seemed to ripple unnaturally, as if it were made of liquid shadow. Its face was hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat, but Caleb could feel its gaze on him, heavy, hungry. His throat went dry. The figure stepped forward, and then vanished. 1 second it was there, the next it was gone, leaving only a whisper of cold air in its wake. Caleb's heart hammered against his ribs. "Did anyone else see that?" he asked, voice cracking. The driver didn't react. The bus rolled on. 2 stops left. By the 4th stop, Caleb's nerves were frayed. The bus had long since left any semblance of reality behind. Now, the windows showed only flashes of impossible things, half-glimpsed shapes moving in the dark, towering structures that bent at wrong angles, a sky that wasn't a sky at all, but a swirling mass of black tendrils. Then, this stop was different. A lone lamppost stood in the middle of nowhere, its light a sickly green. Beneath it sat a child, a little girl, in a tattered dress, her knees pulled to her chest. She looked up as the doors opened. Her eyes were hollow. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. Caleb's breath caught. "Do you know my sister?" he asked, desperate. "Lena. She got on this bus. Where is she?" The girl's lips stretched into a smile too wide for her face. "She's part of the route now." The doors slammed shut. The bus moved on. 1 stop left. The 5th stop loomed ahead, a rusted metal archway, its edges dripping with something thick and black. The air inside the bus grew heavier, pressing against Caleb's skin like a living thing. He knew, deep in his bones, that he wasn't supposed to stay past this stop. The ding sounded, the brakes screamed, the doors opened. Caleb lunged for the exit, and the doors didn't budge. He slammed his fists against the glass. "Let me out." No response. The bus idled, waiting. Then, slowly, the driver's head turned. Caleb's blood turned to ice. Beneath the cap was no face, just smooth, paper-thin skin stretched over a void. The thing in the driver's seat spoke for the first time, its voice like dry leaves scraping against concrete. "No one ever gets off." The faceless thing in the driver's seat turned back toward the road, its grip tightening on the wheel. The bus groaned as it pulled away from the stop, the archway shrinking in the rearview mirror until it was swallowed by the void. Caleb stumbled back, his pulse roaring in his ears. No one ever gets off. He looked around wildly. The bus was different, now older, decayed. The seats were rotted through, the floorboards warped and splintered. The shadows in the back had thickened, shifting like living things. And then he saw them, the passengers. They sat perfectly still, their faces gaunt, their eyes hollow. Some wore clothes from decades past, flapper dresses, old military uniforms, bell-bottoms, and disco shirts. Others were barely human at all, their limbs too long, their mouths sewn shut with black thread. And in the very last row, her face half hidden in shadow, Lena. Her skin was pale as wax, her dark hair stringy and unwashed. She stared out the window, unblinking, as the nightmare landscape rolled past. "Lena." Caleb lunged toward her, but the moment his fingers brushed her shoulder, she turned, and her eyes were gone. Only smooth, empty skin remained. Her voice, when she spoke, was a dry whisper. "You shouldn't have come." The bus hit a pothole, jolting Caleb to his knees. The faceless driver didn't react. Lena's bony fingers closed around his wrist. "Listen to me. This bus doesn't follow roads. It follows routes. Paths between places that shouldn't exist. And once you're on it," she trailed off, her grip tightening. "You don't leave unless you become part of it." Caleb's stomach dropped. What does that mean? A dry, rattling laugh came from the seat ahead. The old woman from earlier was back, her milky eyes fixed on him. It means you drive, or you disappear. The bus dinged again. A new stop, a new passenger, waiting. Caleb's blood ran cold, because the figure standing outside wasn't a stranger, it was him, a hollow-eyed, slack-jawed version of himself, staring blankly through the doors. That's what happens if you stay, Lena whispered. You fade, and then you get back on. The doors hissed open. The other Caleb stepped forward. Panic surged through him. How do I stop this? Lena's voice was barely audible. The driver has to let you go, or you have to take his place. The faceless thing behind the wheel sat motionless. The other Caleb was halfway inside now, his fingers brushing the fare machine. Lena's nails dug into his arm. You have to choose. Now. Caleb looked at the driver, then at the empty seat behind the wheel, then at the thing wearing his face, stepping onto the bus. He made his decision. Caleb's breath came in ragged gasps as the doppelganger of himself stepped fully onto the bus. Its movements were jerky, unnatural, like a marionette with half its strings cut. The doors wheezed shut behind it, sealing them all inside. Lena's grip on his arm was iron. Now, Caleb. While it still confused, the faceless driver sat motionless, its void-like face turned just slightly, as if listening. Caleb's mind raced. Take the driver's place. How? The other Caleb was shuffling down the aisle now, its hollow eyes fixed on him. The passengers watched in silence, their faces gaunt with something like hunger. The old woman in the front row leaned forward, her voice a dry rasp. The wheel must always have hands. That's the rule. Caleb swallowed hard. There was no time to think. He lunged. The driver moved faster than something without eyes should have been able to. Its hand snapped up, catching Caleb by the throat before he could reach the wheel. The grip was impossibly strong, the skin papery and cold. Caleb gagged, clawing at the thing's arm, but his fingers passed through it, as if the driver wasn't entirely there. Behind him, the other Caleb let out a wet, rattling sound. Too close, Lena screamed. The cap, take its cap. Caleb grabbed for the driver's tattered hat. The moment his fingers touched the brim, the driver shrieked a sound like metal grinding against bone. Its grip faltered. Caleb wrenched free and tore the cap away. The driver's body convulsed. Its form flickered like a dying light bulb, and then it crumbled. The uniform collapsed into dust. The seat was empty. The bus swerved violently. The headlights cut wildly through the void as the bus careened off the unseen road. Passengers were thrown from their seats. The windows cracked, spider-webbing with fractures that let in whispers from the dark outside. Caleb stumbled into the driver's seat. The wheel was ice-cold, vibrating under his hands like a living thing. Take control. Now, he gripped it. The moment he did, the bus screamed. A sound like 100 voices wailing at once tore through the air. The headlights flared bright, illuminating something massive and shapeless in the distance, a thing of teeth and shadow, coiled around the road, and then silence. The bus steadied. The road ahead was clear. Caleb's hands shook on the wheel. The other Caleb was going to vanish the moment he took the driver's seat. The passengers had returned to their places, motionless once more, except for Lena. She stood in the aisle, her hollow eyes fixed on him. You have to let me off. Caleb's chest tightened. What? No, I can stop the bus. I can get us both out of here. Lena shook her head. You can't. Not anymore. The bus needs a driver, but it doesn't need all its passengers. The old woman nodded. One can leave. Only one. Caleb's vision blurred. This wasn't the plan. Lena placed a skeletal hand against the glass. Let me off at the next stop. The next stop materialized out of the void, a single flickering street lamp, its light a pale gold against the endless dark. Caleb forced the bus to a halt. The doors opened. Lena hesitated at the threshold. For a moment, she looked almost like herself again. I'm sorry, she whispered. Then she stepped off. The doors closed. The bus lurched forward, and when Caleb looked back, the stop was already gone. Time lost meaning. The bus drove on, through landscapes that shouldn't exist, cities of bone, forests of wire, skies that dripped like oil. Passengers came and went, though none ever spoke to him. The cap on Caleb's head itched. The wheel never warmed beneath his hands. And then, one night, the bus pulled into a familiar stop. Rain-slick pavement, a flickering streetlight, a rusted bench. A figure stood there, who'd pulled up against the downpour. The doors opened. The passenger hesitated, then stepped inside. Caleb turned to warn them, but no sound came out. He tried to scream, but now, he was the silent driver. Some buses take you to work, some take you home, but once in a while, a bus comes to take you somewhere else. Somewhere you were never meant to be. And if you see one at midnight with no route number, don't get on. No one ever gets off. Before you go, tell me in the comments, would you have taken the driver's seat? Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell. The next story is already waiting for you.